Were there any listener questions or viewer questions?
There was this guy Justin. I don't remember what his last name is. He tends to ask these kind of like thoughtful questions, and
So this is a listener question from Justin.
I think his name is Justin. Hang on a second.
What you got there?
On the Josh Caterer thing.
Ooh, yeah.
He said
we did Josh Caterer last week.
I'm so sorry. Jeremy is his name.
Jeremy.
Question: Could Scott talk about not sanding down the specifics in a set of very specific songs like 12 Angry Months? How complicated a process is it to whittle down personal life events into pithy lines that tap into the universal, especially in breakup songs that seem to bring up a lot of very personal relationship matters?
This is a good question. So Josh last week, by the way, great episode. Josh was terrific. Get his new record, the Hideout Sessions. Josh was talking about there's a Smoking Popes record, and in particular, this Smoking Popes song. It's called "Excuse Me, Coach," where he's talking about he just broke up with somebody and he's doing push-ups, and Matt from the Popes thought that maybe if they got rid of the lines about doing push-ups and made it more universal, it would, I don't know, like be a hit or something. I'm not sure what Matt was thinking. He was probably just thinking as like those lines stuck out, and he wanted to make a song that more people would, I don't know, identify with, right? That's probably the thing.
Yeah, because I think there are two schools of thought about that. I think there's like the Mariah Carey school of lyrics, which is like be as vague and fucking Hallmark as you can at all times so people can think this is about them. But I'm with you. I think the much more interesting and ultimately more universal style of lyrics is to be as personal as specific as possible.
I agree with you. Whether or not we're right is another thing. But I remember reading this interview with Linkin Park, and they were recording a record with somebody, and it was like their follow-up to a big record that they'd put out. And so it seemed to me during this entire interview that the entire point of this next record was to be as big as possible. And, you know, that's got its own problems for me. But it was just all that mattered was how many units this record was going to sell. And one of the things that the producer had told them was that you got to like sand down all the edges on these lyrics. Those probably weren't the words they used, but just get rid of all the specifics so it can be as universal and reach as many people as possible. And you see that with, you know, blockbuster movies. Any real emotion or quirk that these movies have, they want to get rid of them to get more asses in the seats. Now, I totally disagree with that thing. I absolutely hate that idea, which is probably why I sell 5 records of every record we put out. But I think that, you know, what you said, Ben, like the more specific and the more little details that you put in there, that's when it really gets to somebody. That's when somebody goes, oh, this person's talking to me. And, you know, and the people that want to listen, that want to get something out of it, they will, even if they don't exactly know what you're talking about. Like take the first song on 12 Angry Months, where it's talking about Caius Records. And, you know, you've taken my Blondie records. Not that that's a, you know, but all these little details. So to answer his question, like that was kind of the point of the record, was to take all those little details and breakups, the kind of things that you usually want to get rid of if you're making a Linkin Park record, and to put those on the record. And hopefully it's not going to reach everybody, but hopefully the people that it does reach, it's going to make a big impression on. A bigger impression than if it was just generic bullshit.
Well, let me ask you sort of a follow-up question that is sort of maybe he's asking this in a way. There's another sort of element to this, which is like the Rivers Cuomo Pinkerton thing, which like Pinkerton recorded their second album, and Rivers Cuomo wrote a bunch of songs that were incredibly personal, it seems like.
Yeah.
Full of specifics and full of like uncomfortable feelings and situations that he'd been in, and sort of as much as he seems capable of doing, sort of laid it all out there, and then almost immediately regretted it and was embarrassed, and because the album was not a hit, and really like retreated into like literally covered a room with like dark curtains and went to school for a couple of years or something, and like completely, and then when he came back eventually, none of those lyric qualities were in Weezer songs anymore. It's all sort of gibberish and just things.
He never made that mistake again.
Right. Have you ever felt like regretful about putting things that were maybe personal in lyrics that you then were like, oh shit, maybe I should have just kept that to myself?
No, I mean, maybe slightly embarrassed, but not regretful. I mean, that's a real shame with that whole Weezer thing. Like, he, like you're right. And then he came back and he was like, I'm never going to do that again. And I'm just going to like sand everything down and make hits. And that's kind of, and people love that, but I think there's a lot of people who wish he would make another Pinkerton, which is impossible. I don't think he's the same person that made Pinkerton. But yeah, that doesn't really answer your question. No, I'm pretty happy with lyrically, even if it's uncomfortable. It's like, it's all right. It's cool. I know why I did it and for what reason. And if anyone has a problem with anything that I've said lyrically or anything like that, I can tell them why those things were said. Does that answer the question at all?
It totally does.